OTG, where we highlight people, places, and things. And we have Diego here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to see you. I was doing an interview and like looked over, like past the camera and like saw you there. I was like, oh my God. I haven't seen you since Art Basel.
Miami, yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Mobbing around all night in Ubers.
Yeah.
Crazy time. I never found out if you made your flight.
I did.
Okay.
I did. And it was so funny because out of a sudden we got lost and it was like, I looked for you guys forever and you guys looked for me forever and we never found each other and then we just went different paths.
Went on different paths. I think like right before we left, I might have seen you dancing like the final minute. But okay, so you made your flight.
I did.
And you made it to NFT Paris.
Here we go.
Okay. What is your, expectations here, like coming to NFT Paris?
I join events for two motives. Either I'm speaking,
Yes.
or I just came to hang out.
Yes.
With people. So I come for the people. I didn't went around yet. I didn't see anything. I'm just literally here to talk to people, get to see people that I'm just connected remote or, put a face behind the avatar.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the motives why I come to events. Yeah.
I love that. I feel the same. And then so for anyone who's watching who maybe has never met you before, do you want to tell people, who you are, like why you're interested in this industry and like how you kind of got into NFTs?
Yeah.
That was 3 questions in one question.
No, I love it.
Sorry.
It's good. It's just it's going to be a long ass answer.
Oh, okay, I'm ready. You're the last interview of the day, I think. Anyways.
There you go. So I've been consulting brands for the last 8 years in digital marketing, digital strategies, and branding. So that's kind of like the Web2 background, right? So that's where I'm really coming from. I started working on that area super early on my life, I would say. I was 15 years old, working on the agency side, helping bringing big brands into what in 2007 was not culture still, which was gaming, esports, and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. So I was helping brands like Samsung, Warner Bros, Red Bull to sort of like navigate into a new culture. Because the gaming culture back in 2007 was basically the console was in the basement, was not in the living room.
Yes,
right?
that is so true.
And that is such a huge different, culture shift that happened. That I was there and at the beginning of my career and I sort of like saw the beauty of communities, the beauty of branding, the beauty of brands going beyond the product, but then tying, their messaging or their brand values with experiences or with new ways of expressing themselves, right? So that for me was the beginning of everything. And then I went super deep into marketing and branding since then. I spent 4 years at Adidas. That was the last sort of like big brand I worked with. Within that Web2 world still. So I was there in the headquarters for 4 years. And while within Adidas, I heard about NFTs, right? Wow. I've been in blockchain since 2017. I really love sort of like the use case, the ideas, but I couldn't see past the Ponzi schemes. I couldn't see past the cryptocurrency element. And the use case that I was really excited about was way too technical for me as a non-dev, right? So I always was dying to find my space and couldn't ever find it. And then NFTs just brought everything together. I was like, I learned so much about culture, about branding, about people, about community. And I knew so much about the technology and how those things are coming together.
Yes.
So, and friends of mine were already helping the brand going to that direction within Adidas. They invited me to come along and help them with bringing the branding to the Metaverse, which was the project that we dropped in December 2021, which, I was very thankful and grateful to have been part of, help them, in different parts to get there. We then went on and did a partnership with Prada and Adidas as well, which was that partnership where Prada went and did their first step in the Web3 space. Adidas built a little bit more into their space. And then, by December 21, I looked to what happened as a DJ because I've been in the space for a long time, not a long time, but for almost 2 years now.
Yep.
And then in the NFT space. And then from a corporate and branding perspective, I was like, there is something really exciting here. Yes. And I want to go and do what I always done, which is consulting brands. So I left Adidas. And then since January 2021, I've been helping Fortune 500 brands to enter the space. So I worked with Salesforce and helped them launch in the NFT cloud.
Wow, yes.
So we partnered on that. I worked with Unilever and 2 brands from the group where they were still trying to explore the space. I've been working with the Volkswagen Group now with 3 different brands from the group. So Porsche being one, Cupra being another one, Skoda being another one. I've been working with Shell as well, the energy company. I worked with MasterCard, with L'Oreal. So really helping like
every brand.
Yeah, I tried to...
I can't think of a brand that wasn't on that list, honestly.
I tried to position myself in this space where I really want to help accelerate the mainstream adoption of blockchain technology and NFTs.
Yes.
And that's why I want to translate the madness of Twitter into a manner that everybody can convey and learn and listen to, right? So
Yes.
I went to LinkedIn and I do a lot of my content on LinkedIn. I try to translate a lot of the madness, talk about experience, talk about the things I've done, talk about the things I'm seeing. And that's where a lot of those brands are, and they reached out and then we start working together in different manners.
Oh, that's fantastic. I've heard that LinkedIn is like the place to be.
It's great. I mean, it's everywhere, right? There are people that don't know enough and claiming to be experts. There are people that are sharing different points of view. There's a for me, the core thing of LinkedIn is that the fact that everybody's doxxed makes it a little less of a crazy Wild West.
Yes.
Which is, we love Twitter and we hate Twitter because of the Wild West, right? But I feel that in the moment we still are, especially with enterprises, and especially at looking at how this new use case will go post the PFP era, post the collectibles era, that we really start looking into new business models and so on. Like that's the way we need to be, right? It needs to be in a space where those enterprises feel more comfortable being in part of, and that's something I've been trying to do.
I love that. I feel like Adidas is so lucky that they had you, someone who's so passionate and understands, I think, blockchain technology and NFTs and like what could happen with them.
Yeah. Just for the record, I was part of like a larger group, right? So
Yes.
they had like
Of course.
5, 7, 10 other people that are as deep in the space as I as well. So.
Of course. I think that like if it's any indication though that NFTs are here to stay, it's that all these major brands have initiated
100%.
these projects. That
100%.
they're seeing that it's going to be useful, and it's not just this like fad thing.
Yeah.
And certainly these are the things I like to point to. I like to point to the major brands getting involved when people say it's just a scam or they can't get past that. But everything you're saying is such like so true to me. It's like my passion as well as like the branding side of everything. I think that's why I just fell in love with Nouns, because they essentially just gave us these noggles and they said just do whatever you want with them. And like from a branding perspective, like that's incredible because I'll be sitting here doing an interview and stuff and like people come and they like know about the noggles and then they know about Nouns, but then they don't know about anything else. And that symbol to me, I had some time that I worked at Red Bull as well. That the symbol of the can of Red Bull is just iconic. You can see it sitting on a table. You might not have ever tried one. You don't know what it tastes like, but you know what it is.
Yeah, you know what it stands for.
Yes,
and
I feel like the noggles are becoming that symbol.
Yeah.
And are becoming one of the symbols in NFTs that can do that and portray that image. But is that something like you're trying to focus on with these brands, like to almost give them like, maybe it's not a symbol in NFTs, like maybe it's a phrase or something, like I'm not quite sure, but like are other brands sort of following that trajectory as well, or are you seeing like whole different ways of creativity?
It depends, right? And every single brand that I've engaged with, either the ones I mentioned or the ones I can talk about or the ones that I end up not closing deals with, all of them are looking into that in a different way.
Okay.
Right? A year and a half ago, everybody was talking about PFPs. Oh, we got to launch brand PFP, right? That was the thing.
Yeah.
And then it moved so quick, and it was like, oh, collectibles are the new thing. So we're going to do digital collectibles, and we're going to sell, blah, blah, blah. And now everybody's talking about loyalty. Everybody's talking about an engagement. Everybody's talking about membership. Because that's less alien to them.
Yes.
Right? So I think that depending on the brand and depending on the use case and the motives on why they're doing, their approach is going to be different. A lot of the brands are also adding the metaverse layer to it, right?
Yes.
Which is sort of like fitting within that avatar-like audiences, and then Web3 or Web 2.5, whatever you want to call it, and then the metaverse. So it depends a lot, right? Like Shell is a great example that is a company that's doing something completely different than what you would expect a brand doing within the Web3 space, right? Shell has been doing stuff in the blockchain space for over 16, 17 years, right?
Oh, wow.
They have like full set of devs, blockchain devs sitting inside the brand. As an energy company, all of that was in the background, right? All of that is like the quote unquote boring, and forgive me for saying it, but I'm a brand guy, so for me that's kind of like, oh, cool. But it's all like the background stuff, right? How data is transactioning within different chains and different parties and blah, blah, blah. But now they're going up front and going more towards the consumer. And one of the projects that they launched was, how do you can start looking into the way that energy is changing from a perspective that before you had a centralized manner of supplying energy. So you have one one party in the country that provides energy for everybody. But now what's happening, especially through solar, is that energy is getting decentralized from its source.
Yes.
Right.
Oh,
So that everybody with a solar in the roof can sell back to the grid. And what is the way that we can sort of like certify and verify that transaction, right? So that's a
Wow.
big question. And if you look at that, blockchain plays a very important role within that space. But if you want to extrapolate on that, imagine if that energy pack would be represented by NFTs. We can create a marketplace where energy can be bought and sold from directly from peer to peer, and you know where the energy is coming from, what is inside, how sustainable it is, how renewable it is, and that's NFTs, and that's Web3, and that's blockchain, right?
Wow.
Or you can look into what Porsche has done and look into a digital collectible, right? And look into unlocking the gates of money can buy experience. Or you can look off what we are doing with Cupra, which is they're launching Meta Hype, which is a metaverse platform where they want to bring people to co-create together with brands and creators from all over the world. And as soon as you create an account, you get your wallet created, and those are all soul-bound NFTs and so on. Totally different place, almost same industry.
Yes.
Let's say automotive slash energy. And that's kind of like what's happening now. But my role, and going back to your question, what I always try to do is to get the brands to think about the next stuff, right? Because a lot of the things we're still seeing today from brands is partnerships with Web3 projects, or collectibles, or PFPs, or like that's the playbook of 2021, right? Adidas did that, and then Puma did that, and then Nike bought Artifact, and a couple brands did partnerships. For me, that's yesterday.
Yes.
And what I'm looking for is what is next.
Yes.
And I'm super bullish on engagement right now. I'm super bullish on loyalty. I'm super bullish on membership, because that is something that is not alien to any brand. They understand that consumer engagement brings growth, retention, and you can grab brand equity for doing so. And now they're looking into that technology and how we can potentially sort of like create these new models at scale, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, it's even like, taking like a rewards card that you get from your local, favorite restaurant, that every time you come in, you get like a punch.
Exactly.
It's like that can be utilized. Like there's so many use cases for NFT technology that like we are barely scratching the surface, that, it makes sense that the playbook for it to kind of first come out was more of just like kind of hype.
Yeah.
And we're going to get past the hype now.
Yeah.
I'm like you, I'm thinking about like, what is this next thing going to be? Like, is it going to be ticketing?
Yeah.
Is it going to be ownership of clothing? There's so many different things, but it's so interesting as you're talking about the metaverse. It's almost like recreating that moment. Like metaverse is almost kind of like bringing people into like this world and making it easier if that's something that they understand. If they came from a video game world or something. It's kind of like the new, like, the video game box going from the basement like up to the living room. Which now, when you said that, I had never even thought about that, and it is so true. And it's almost like that's when, as soon as like you could do other things and have apps on your like Xbox, like Netflix and stuff, that's when it came up.
100%.
And now all of a sudden, instead of like a DVD player, you have an Xbox. And that's like your whole family's using it.
And that's what we are keeping saying right now. That's the mainstream adoption, where the technology is being sort of like hidden, right? And utility is being added to it. So instead of being a console that you play games in the basement with your buddies, now sits in the main living room where the family comes around, play games, watch films.
Well, and now mom is even picking up the controller to pick her Netflix movie, but she's like holding an Xbox controller,
100%,
which would just never have happened before.
Yeah, it's a culture shift, and that's for me, by have missed the opportunity to be out there in business when the internet went mainstream because I was just too young, and then missing the opportunity on social because I was just at the start of my career, and now I'm looking at the patterns and Web3 and NFTs and all those new ways on which the internet is evolving, and culture is playing a major role alongside of technology. I'm like, I'm all in. Like there is absolutely no way you can talk me out of that this new thing it's gonna change the world, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, I'm all into, I honestly could just pick your brain for hours. You are so like savvy and really thoughtful, I think, when it comes to these things. And I think that's why you're probably just excelling in this brand area, because you really do have to be a deep thinker about these things when you're trying to see how someone might enter. Not just as a person who is interested about NFTs, of course, but like enter as a company who wants to create an experience, who wants to house a whole world for normal people to just kind of come in and just get to have the NFT and see what that even means.
And also, like, and thanks for the words, appreciate it. Also, what you need to think, especially for those brands, and I understand the feeling, especially from, Web3 diehard or degens. I'm part of it.
Yes.
I identify myself as well. And I understand the feeling of the cash grabbing, right? And I feel it. But what we need to step back and remember is that brands that are entering the space are multi-billion brands, right? Like Adidas is an example. Makes 24 billion in revenue a year, right? Made 6 billion just selling products, digitally on .com and apps, right? The partnership they had with EA through Easy before was worth $1 billion in revenue a year.
Wow.
And now, a lot of, and I'm not talking about Adidas specifically. Adidas is just an example of how much revenue those brands are making.
Yes.
But now you see a brand coming in and doing a drop, which, looks at extracting 2, 3, 4 million from the market, and you think it's a cash grab because they need to grab cash from somewhere. That's not the case. They just don't know how to operate within that space.
Yes.
They're testing, they're learning. There is boards, there is top management, there are investors that are forcing them to take decisions that they're not comfortable with. So a lot of times, innovating is extremely dangerous, especially for well-renowned brands that have been around forever and made billions and billions in revenue. So, I think our space is so harsh on brands because we're used to the scams. We survive scams left and right, especially in DeFi and crypto early.
Yes.
But a lot of those brands are literally just trying to figure out, and the more they fail, the more hard we are on them, the less they're going to try.
Well, because, a normal person who wants to start a company, like they're going to have all that thought beforehand. And, before you really like jump in, you have to like feel like you have a vision of where you're going.
Yeah.
But I feel like for these brands that they just have the money, they just jump on in, like who cares? But I feel like they're not understanding the residual effects of what could happen within the community part, where it almost feels like, the NFTs is really an opportunity for brands to have authentic relationships with the people that interact with them. And I think we're going to finally step away from this thing of just like, oh, I'm seeing someone like advertising to me and I just know that it's an ad that I have to see, and they're just putting it in front of me and they're trying to relate to me in some way. I actually think that providing use cases that are benefiting a person in their life is more relatable than just being like, look, I skateboard. Don't you want to do this thing too? Or like, look, I like flowers.
100%.
Don't you guys want to buy these flowers as well? Like, and obviously I'm just like picking random things because I don't want to call any brands out. But I think the technology and what a brand should be doing would be understanding the technology so they can understand how it would be benefiting people, because like the benefits are going to be creating this whole new wave of consumers that are going to be die-hard loyal people.
100%.
Because then the collected NFT is something that is providing them something like truly.
And here's the I know we got to wrap. So here's the final thought, right? So why Web3 is so interesting, specifically for what you just said. Because if you think about data as a way to understand and service customers better, and that's the core element of Web 2, but also the biggest problem, because we don't own our data as customers, and big tech owns it and sort of like extorts and manipulates everything around it, and the consumer is the one that gets the least value out of it, right?
Yes.
And the data pools within that Web 2 mentality was always like address, name, gender, zip code, phone number, which doesn't mean shit.
Yeah,
right?
what does that even mean?
It's not because you're a woman from this age group, living in this city with this, zip code, that you will be have the same behaviors and wishes than everybody else that is in the cluster, right? And that for me is the big problem. Now, how Web3 enables that in a manner that is still anonymous and respects data privacy and enables the consumer to own their data is that you can reverse engineer actual actions that the user has taken on chain by analyzing their wallets and see what they hold, what they're interested, how long they've been around, how active they are. And then you can reverse engineer those data pools and create a product offering to them.
Yes, because you can
and
actually
you need to
see
know
what
their
a person
name
likes.
and age and anything. It's factual-based data.
Wow.
It's not assumptions on putting similar things and generalizing people in buckets and trying to see if it sticks. And that's the power that not a lot of brands are seeing still.
Oh, there's so much power. It's right there for them at their fingertips. I hope that brands can catch on and understand how to utilize this technology. And I'm really excited for the next time I get to see you in New York, because it will be a couple months from now. And like, I can't imagine what's already going to have progressed in that time.
It's crazy.
And to see where you've progressed.
Yeah.
I know you're just absolutely this person that is going to make it in this industry because you already have that vision. I feel like of the longer term vision that a lot of people I don't meet often have. So thank you so much, Diego, for hanging with me and for providing such valuable information for anyone that's watching this. A lot that I'm even taking away from this interview. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and thank you for everybody at home who tunes into OTG, because you know that we highlight people, places, and things, and we will see you at the next interview.